Sorry about that, guys. So this is Chris with Drop Dice. Um, so this week we're doing another world building event or world building session, if you will. What I wanted to talk about was actually planar travel, and I kind of avoided this for a little while on Stratmur because I wanted to figure out how basics were placed and things like that. And it's kind of a hard topic to define, and so I think defining the world, or at least outlining the world first, is kind of a good way to go. Now, Stratmere is far from completion, and I'm fine with that. But I wanted to kind of think about how one could get to Stratmere. So we've already talked about how in the Copper Jackals world of Dragon Grin, Stratmere happens to be one of the moons. Now, I had this idea in my head that some copper jackals may be possibly on the moon already. So I had to think, well, how are they getting there? And I haven't quite hammered down anything yet, but this is basically me using the channel as a sounding board for what could be a way to get to Stratmere from other locations and things like that, or planes. And the first thing that I thought was magic, just in general, like planar traveling and things like that. But if you were to talk about to go from like Dragon Grin to Stratmere, Stratmere's just a planet, is a moon. It's not really a plane, so planar travel doesn't really work. Teleportations aren't going to work because it's too far of a distance. So it becomes a question of like, what kind of super magic would I want to have that involves being able to do that sort of travel? And some of the ideas that I've thought about are like possibly some sort of teleportation gateway thing, much akin to like a Stargate, um, where it's like a passageway that creates like a tunnel between places. Other ways could be maybe some sort of like super magic phenomenon. Um, there could be some keys that possibly, like, they look like keys on a key ring, and if you just like go to the right area, like let's say there's a special rock on a cliffside over in the Ezeros Islands, and you take this key and you like push it into the sky, it'll like sink like it's in a keyhole, and then you can turn it, and then all of a sudden this gateway opens up and it exposes Stratmere, some random location on Stratmur. Um, and I thought all these ideas sounded really cool, but I haven't quite settled on which way I want to go about it, because I really like the idea of it being limiting. So having it tied to like limited use items and things like that, like maybe the key, when you use it, it shatters. So pretty much like the gateway stays open only for a little bit of time, and once you go through, it closes. Um, Now, Stratmere is a little bit different. Once you're there, it's a little harder to get back to Dragon Grid, is what I've already kind of talked to Tim and James about, is that it's travel there is a little easier than it is to get back to Dragon Grid, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's impossible. So maybe the same types of things can happen in Stratmere to get you back to Dragon Grid if you wanted to go back. But because of the rarity of those items and conditions, I like to think that there's actually a Copper Jackals group that is in Stratmere that have come over and started setting up shop in a land that is new and slightly friendly to them, because they don't have to deal with the flack that Copper Jackals dealt with inside the real world, or inside Dragon Grid, where they had a lot of pressure due to some past history issues. It's kind of a fresh world, and it's a world of discovery for the Copper Jackals, and I thought that was a really cool idea. And that's kind of how I'm going to include the Copper Jackals, because I mentioned that they're going to be in Stratmere. The other thing I wanted to talk about was some of these other gateways. I think a lot of times when you talk about magic users in your world, they summon elementals and things like that into your world. It usually gets left up to the player as to describing it, but there are some worlds where that sort of thing is like a tear in reality, and too much of that will cause a problem. And I don't know that I want to go that far, to be honest. But I like the idea of it possibly having some implementation, or implications rather, as far as effects and conditions on the world. Like maybe if you summon a fire elemental, like the fires in the area kind of go out because that fire elemental is drawing that energy to itself. And so maybe in Stratmere, as a planar effect of them traveling in, if there's a fire within or a natural fire, I should say, within 100 feet of the fire elemental, it just gets sucked into the fire elemental's being. And maybe that's just a law that I have about planar travel. I always think that it's kind of cool to think about how your plane or world is actually situated within the different planes and things like that. And one of the things that I touched on is I wanted to have bits of Stratmur where, due to the conditions of the world, the Fey courts or the Fey wild bleeds over into the real world, especially during the fall solstice and the spring solstice, when the seasons are basically shifting from the dry season to the wet season. I wanted those times to be especially kind of weakened conditions that the Fae are around. And the type of Fae that I'm thinking of is not your happy-go-lucky Fae. I'm talking about like evil Eastern European folklore Fae, where they're gonna eat your toes and or eat your toenails and steal your goods and bread from you. That kind of Fae. Like, I want to have ones that like are straight evil, but others that are kind of weird too. Like in Japanese lore, there's a type of demon that basically comes in your house, drinks your tea, and eats your biscuits, and then moves stuff around, and he leaves. And he's supposed to be impossible to detect. And I think having stuff like that would be fun, just like some harmless ones, but then have other ones that are like giants are part of the Fey world, technically. So, like, you know, have these like Fey rune marked giants that come through the Fey world during these seasons, and they just wreck cities and things like that. Because during the solstice, or maybe the week of the solstice, that barrier is weakened, and so it allows for some pretty deadly things to cross that barrier. But on the flip side, it does allow people and things from Stratmur to cross the barrier into the Feywild, which, in all fairness, is probably not as deadly, but it's still a way for you to be able to go between the courts. So maybe in Stratmur we have people that are like exploring the Feywild because they figured out that if they go there and they manage to survive, they can actually leave the Feywild the next time the solstice rolls around. And so maybe your group is like a group of like cartographers that are adventuring through the Feywild, and are just hoping to survive to get back to the home that they know and love in Stratmur. Those are kind of the planes that I was more interested in. Now, there's also like Shadow and things like that, and I think I'm going to kind of let those play out inside the story. I think when it comes to world building, there's only so much you can do inside your little bubble, like I'm doing right now. And then at some point, when the players get involved, you have to completely let go of the reins and just let it be a full-blown group exercise at that point. And that's, I think, why I've kind of kept it pretty small. I've labeled out races, I've created the map, and I think the next session I do, I'm going to talk about naming the continents at least. But I may start pulling in people to possibly help with the project or something like that. I don't know. Really, this has been an exercise in just kind of showing how to do stuff, like to get your world set up. So I mean, I'm going to pretty much do it until I feel comfortable or that I've met all the goals that I had in mind for the world building session, and then I'll probably start something new. As far as other new world building related projects, I am doing a Fantasy Age hack where I'm doing it in a science fiction setting that I'm calling Provenance, and that's Provenance, as in Provenance, not Providence, like the city in Rhode Island. I had to correct somebody on that earlier this week. But Provenance is basically a sci-fi setting that's about exploration. And so I'm doing some stuff on my my wiki for it. I just released the Tianguna, which are wickedly popular, to be honest. I made them this brutal alien race that's just completely foreign from what humans are, and apparently they, inside their past, they've been to Earth, and they were kind of seen as monsters by Earthlings, which I thought was a really cool thing to do. And I'm going to come up with a specialty for them, and I'm going to add their world. So I've got some more building to do that involves them. So if you're interested in the Tianguna, stay tuned. There's going to be stuff for you. In fact, I'll probably put up another post tonight. I really love sci-fi, so I've been posting pretty much every day since I started the project. I took a couple days off when I updated my computer over to Windows 10 and had some issues, but other than that, I'm up and running now, and everything seems to be working okay. I still don't have all my parts in, unfortunately. My case was just about a 1/4 inch too shy of being able to fit all those parts in, so I got to get a new case. Until then, I've got pretty much my old computer that I repieced together after cleaning it out. But all in all, it's been a great experience kind of building this and even Provenance. So if you want to take part, enjoy, or even just check out what I'm doing, because I know a lot of people don't necessarily care to do sci-fi, you may find it interesting to just see how I'm building sci-fi, and you may be able to find something that you like. Like maybe you like the idea of the Tianguna, but you don't want sci-fi, so maybe you just bring them in as a monster in your world. I mean, these things are awesome looking. They just look like monsters, to be honest. Let me do a little screen share real quick here with you guys, and I'll show you what the Tianguna look like. Oops. So if you hadn't checked it out on the blog, that's the Tianguna. Those things are just freaking awesome with their blades and barb tails. The barb tail is like an option, but essentially I'm going to create like a martial arts style thing that is all unique to them because of the fact that they have 3 natural weapons built in. And you can see how stuff like that like inspires me, finding good artwork and stuff like that. The other thing I think I'm going to do is I've made a couple races for Stratmur. I'm probably going to throw those up on the blog now that or on the website now that I've got the website going. If you do decide to check out any of that stuff, check it out at dropdice.com. If you see something you like, feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe, just like you would for any of these videos here. But yeah, like I think that basically going back to the original point, I think that establishing the laws of your planar travel really helps you in the long run. You're probably not going to see a lot of it from the players until later in the game. However, you may see more of it for like bad guys. Like it may make sense that like this bad guy is not from your world. And so establishing how planar travel works kind of helps, because if you have players that are interested in investigating and things like that, you know, being able to have that discovered and figured out how it works already gives you the stuff you need to create clues so that they can follow that adventure path and kind of investigate and discover things as they go. It's pretty much all I've got for this one. I wanted to keep this video short and kind of sweet to the point. I'm ideally going to be shooting for videos that are shorter like this. As always, feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe, and check out the website, dropdice.com. And as always, guys, I will see you at the gaming table.